why I'm talking to you about is that if you have been looking at the vaccine thing for the coronavirus, the word RNA has become part of common vocabulary. The part genetic code has become part of common vocabulary. And in fact, the virus is not even a live form. If you look at the definition of what is a living thing, virus doesn't come in it. Virus doesn't even have a cell. See, many people I've seen in public, they are talking about germs and bacteria and viruses in the same breath. No, bacteria are single cell organisms, but viruses don't even have a full cell structure. They are just protein and the RNA or the DNA. In fact, there's a Baltimore classification for the type of viruses depending upon the DNA and the RNA and so on. But forget that. Basically, it is protein and a replicating mechanism. And look at the amount of damage the coronavirus has done. I mean, we've got all these Rafale aircraft, this, that, whatever, but the coronavirus is already in India, killed more than 160,000 people, infected 1 crore people, caused the kind of damage it has done. And it actually is not a living form. If you talk to the person, it is not. It is that threshold because it can live only in a host. And it lives. So when the coronavirus has spread, it has not spread, it has no wings. We took it with us. We took it with us in our cars, in our aeroplane, in our everything that we felt. We took it along. It had no power to move on its own. It cannot do anything on its own. It has to find some host in which then the RNA starts replicating. And now the new vaccine technology is called a messenger RNA technology. Why? What my point is really this, that these are very exciting times to be in. So, medicine in the past largely cured diseases. And so if you had now, this antibiotic survey, there was a time when, for example, we had no cure for tuberculosis, we had no cure for typhoid, we had no cure for malaria, many other things. But over time we have created these medicines. But today, a completely new thing is coming up, which is called cellular therapy, which is saying that I will not give you another chemical compound to fight. I will engineer your cells. In fact, in the most challenging thing of cancer, they're now using immunocell therapy. So they're picking out cells, reprogramming those cells to be able to fight. And because your immune system was a little weak, it is trying to make it better, and immunocell therapy is coming up. More and more, we are looking at cells. Cells are the basic constituents of life matter. Just like Democritus talked about atom as the smallest element of physics or in chemistry, the cell is the smallest. But a cell, just like the atom has a lot of internal structure, the cell has a lot of infrastructure, including mitochondria, this, that, whatever. And the future is all about cellular biology and things being looked at the cellular level. I just wanted to convey to you the excitement, but the important point that is remaining, and I will use that towards wrapping up before I ask you to ask questions, is for a long time we did not understand how these things happen. In fact, the structure of the cell for the first time was seen by Robert Hooke around the same time as Isaac Newton. So Isaac Newton, Robert Hooke are contemporary. Robert Hooke had made the first microscope. And first time he saw the structure of the cells, and he used the word cells because they were like small cabins in a monastery where monks used to be there. A lot of biology was done by monks. Gregor Mendel was a monk, etc., etc. And therefore, he used the word cells for them. And then when Liu and Hawk had a better microscope, they required more and more cells. So the basic structure is a cell, but there are stem cells which can become all kinds of cells. So when we have a body, we have various cells. We have muscle cells, tissue cells, brain cells, liver cells, kidney cells. This is a process called cellular differentiation, which is very different from ordinary chemistry. Ordinary chemistry just looks at the outer electron and has ionic bonds or covalent bonds or whatever, and carbon has several kinds of bonds, 2, 3, 4, etc., but nothing compared to the wonder of biology. So when cells become, and mostly cellular differentiation was a one-way phenomenon. You had what you called a stem cell as still capable, and once it differentiated, you could not put it back. Until, of course, a few years ago, some people got a Nobel Prize for taking a fully differentiated cell and putting it back, and then reprogramming it, and so on and so forth. Cancers are cells which have gone berserk. And this is one of the important things. So what we are looking at, and now the point that we are saying is that when we looked at all this, and right from evolution talks about a random mutation. Cancer cells talk about random mutation. Many other things talk about random mutation. It is here now that quantum starts coming into play. Because when we start wondering, so why do the mutations happen? So they will believe that it happened because of X-rays, it happened because of ultraviolet, it happened because of some other things. But eventually people are realizing that quantum phenomena are responsible for many of these things. Or it can be for aging, it can be for diseases, it can be for many other things. Now, even Darwin's theory of evolution, many mathematicians actually challenged that, because they said if this is going to happen from trial and error, it would take enormous amounts of time. It cannot happen in a few millions of years. Millions of years is too short for evolution by trial and error. And many people now believe that it is quantum tunneling which is responsible for all these things, all these mutations and so on. Go back to where I said the DNA is a double helix with A, T, and CG as the backbone, and they're connected through hydrogen bonds. And when some of these change over, go from one pair to another pair, that is what mutation is. It can be for bad, it can be for good, whatever. And the time taken here is much less. Mutations between these kind of things happen in 0.63 milliseconds, etc. Therefore, it is possible to reconcile Darwin's evolutionary theory with some of these things by looking at this. So, two things. For a long time, couple of hundred years, we had started understanding the building blocks, but we didn't know what is happening. Once we understood this, especially with the DNA, RNA, and thing, then what happened is we could have a branch called synthetic biology, where you could see so far, whether you bred horses or crossbred plants or did a new variety in agriculture, this is all by looking at what you already had as a genetic pool. Now you're saying, no, if I know this is what the DNA is about, I can actually pick that up and create a completely synthetic kind of a thing. So you can create a synthetic, and Craig Winter has done this in 2010 or so. He created artificial, and that is why the conspiracy theory came up. See, with respect to COVID-19, there's a conspiracy theory that some people made this in a lab and then it went out and so on and so forth, because you can do this. You can create viruses in the lab, you can create bacteria in the lab, and this is a field called synthetic biology. You can do both kinds of things. There's a technology called CRISPR-Cas9, with you can edit existing genes, or you can create new genes and put them together. So synthetic biology, quantum biology, this is taking us to a completely new world. And as I said, this is why the spotlight is on biology, because you can. And what is very interesting, and some people may be threatened at that idea, see, so far what we did in science was to try to understand what exists. We are now coming to something which is actually, some of you might have heard this word called Anthropocene age. And in fact, many of you might have seen the news item that in the year 2020, man-made materials were more than the natural biomass. And this is where the big change is happening. So far, we were trying to see how things happen. So if this is happening in nature, whatever it is, tuberculosis, cancer, this, that, how do we deal with it? Today, we are talking about, if we create this, what will its properties be? What will the form be? So we'll have synthetic life, we have some quantum life, we have all kinds of things. And it's therefore a very interesting area to be in. And I just want to say that this is something, you might pursue different areas of this, whatever you like and so on, but this is now center stage. Just like 100 years ago, physics was center stage. Quantum physics was taking shape. Einstein in 1 year, 1905, produced 4 papers. The Brownian movement, the photoelectric effect, the theory of special relativity, and the equation E is equal to mc squared. Amazing kind of a discovery. We are in a similar state for biology today. that we are going to have. And then the whole thing, it was not, Heisenberg, Schrodinger, Max Planck, all these people were working and completely new physics was created, of which we are seeing the results. The nuclear bomb, the hydrogen bomb, the moon mission, the planets, and now that we are actually going to moon, Mars, etc., is all a result of the big changes that happened in physics. We will have similar changes because of the big understanding of biology now. Aging and death are seen as a problem which is now understood. The final availability of solutions may take time, but it has been understood what causes aging. There are 9 hallmarks of aging. Something, antioxidants are there, telomeres are there, etc. It is just like, and again, I'll go back to you. Most of you in your class 8 level physics must have studied that the escape velocity out of the gravitational pull is 7 miles per second or 11.2 kilometers per second. And therefore, you know that if you send something with this push, it would not come back to the Earth. This calculation you do in class 8-9 physics. But to achieve this for the whole world, it took several years. This calculation could have been done by Newton 300 years ago. But we actually achieved it on, I think, 6th of October 1957, when Russia put up a Sputnik into this thing, first time. Now, of course, we have all these satellites. We are talking to each other because of satellite communication being there. Similarly, we will understand with biology aging and death, and a completely new kind of a life. Longish life, long lifespan, long health span. 100 will be the new normal, and we will be doing healthy and productive kind of things. So basically, the purpose was to give you this idea that this is the most exciting field. And because it has suddenly come up, not many people are aware. If you talk to your parents and grandparents, they'll still tell you, Roorkee mein jaake civil engineering kar le beta. But that is all gone. It has completely changed. Life is very different.